It's been a while that both of us are here. Last week, it was a bonus episode. Before that, Sunila did an episode with Shima on USA and also Janvi, our colleague or Veena World team member, on the experiences that you can have around the world. Sunila has been traveling and she's been traveling a lot, and so have I. I was on my honeymoon in Seychelles, and Sunila was in Switzerland, and before that, I think she was somewhere else. But today, instead of doing sun and sand, we decided to do snow and sand. Or the snow and the sun. Snow being Switzerland, the sun or the sand being Seychelles. So we're going to dedicate this episode to discussing Switzerland and Seychelles, the two S's, but two very distinct destinations that both of us were at recently. So Sunila, you've been to Switzerland a number of times. It's among your favorite destinations, and I think it's something that Yash Chopra ensured that every Indian wants to go to Switzerland at some point in their lives. Going there after 2 years, how did it feel?
It was amazing, Neil. It felt like coming back home or something, Like I have this joke always that when we say that, okay, I'm going to my village and coming. And I said, I'm going to my village too. Only my village is in Switzerland. So it really felt amazing. It was beautiful because the best part was everybody, like I felt, was so welcoming right from the immigration. Like even when you land, often immigration itself is a point where you're a little concerned, worried for no reason, just the way the situation is. You've landed and they ask you questions, how long are you staying, and you have this person smiling here in Switzerland and saying have a great trip. So yeah, it was just a simply fabulous trip. Very happy to
So,
finally be back and able to travel.
of course, we are recording this episode on the 8th
Mhm.
of April, going to be launching on the 9th of April. The episode will be live on the 9th of April. So, of course, what we discuss about vaccinations, RT-PCR requirements will be, of course, timestamped to this.
Yeah.
So, what was it like reaching? Did you have to do a COVID test? And now, what's the status there?
No, it was really nice because there's no test to be done. There's no test even while you're going. But Switzerland does still have a requirement that you would not have taken your second dose more than 9 months. So if you're within the last 6 months, if you had COVID, or if you've taken the second dose within the last 9 months of travel, you can travel to Switzerland. After that, everything is really smooth. No tests anywhere, nothing. In fact, even when you reach Switzerland, you just need to wear the mask in trains, public transport, buses, trains, cable cars, all of that. And other than that, life was absolutely normal and wonderful.
So, okay, we've got the news that the boosters just been approved for everyone above the age of 18. And from the 10th of
Sunday.
April, Sunday,
Yes.
everyone's going to start getting their boosters. So, this 270-day period uh,
It won't
thing,
matter
it won't
anymore
matter
to us.
anymore for Switzerland or
Yes.
any other country that is enforcing
Yeah.
this. So, let's leave vaccinations, let's leave all of these aside.
Mhm.
What were some of the new things that you managed to do in Switzerland?
Neil, I think the best thing that I did in Switzerland this time was something really new. That's actually it was launched last year, but since we've all been away from and not traveling, I couldn't see it earlier. And Jungfrau, the top of Europe at 11,333 feet, which is the mountain that everyone does have a dream of reaching the top of Europe at some point in life. Um, you have a till now we could only use the cogwheel train, like the historic cogwheel trains that go there. So we would go to a place either called Lauterbrunnen or Grindelwald, go there, change the train at Kleiner Schedeg, and then go up to top of Europe. Now you have a new way to go there, and this is a beautiful, brand new, state of the art cable car. I haven't seen a cable car like that till now, and it's called the V cable. And this runs from a completely new station, so very close to Grindelwald town. They built a whole new thing and it's called the terminal. So the terminal itself is called terminal, very, very smartly done. And it has shops, restaurants. It even has a conference hall. So you can do a lot of things there. And then you take the cable car from there, 26 seats. So you can actually sit in the cable car and go up. Really big, very stable. And you go up to Eiger Glacier and then you take the train. So it's cut down the journey a lot. You see many things because you're actually flying over the mountains, and it was simply a fabulous experience. Another great experience was I actually attended a concert, like a music concert in the snow. So it's called the Snopin Air Concert, and that is held every year in the area of either Grindelwald or Kleiner Scheidegg by Jungfrau Railways. So it was fabulous. A few songs were Swiss bands, but they did have some English bands, like mostly European, bands who were playing. But the atmosphere was just electric, and to be out in a concert after 2 years felt unreal for some time. So the music still ringing in my ears. It was great. And what did you do in Seychelles, Neil?
So,
How was that like?
so it's such a different experience, right? You were going to a destination that you've been to multiple times before,
Mhm.
whereas Seychelles was a destination that when we were planning our honeymoon, there were a few ideas being thrown around. Of course, Hawaii was there. There was
Mhm.
Seychelles that was there. There was the Maldives. Everyone was going
Yeah.
to the Maldives over the last 2 years, right? But we decided that we wanted to do a destination that we'll probably never ever go to again in our lives, because a honeymoon then becomes that destination. So, like, we didn't want to go to a Switzerland. We didn't want to go
Mm.
to any other place, and that's why Hawaii was one option. But we were not be able to get flights to like be efficient in terms of the time taken to get to Hawaii. So that's why we decided on Seychelles. And this was the first time I went to Seychelles, did not know much about it. To just put it in two words, it's beautiful, but it's expensive. And it's expensive, like it's
Mm.
properly expensive.
True.
So, when you get to the Seychelles, there are three main islands, right? There's Mahe, there's Pralin, there's Ladig, and you land into Mahe. So what we did was we flew via Dubai because we wanted to shop in
Mhm.
Dubai for a few days.
Yes.
And then on the way back, we flew direct. So Mumbai has a direct connection to Mahe in Seychelles. That is about 4.5 hours, and they fly a A320 there. So it's a very nice flight, which has about 12 business class seats, and everything
Mm.
else is economy. And once you land into Mahe, you can either decide to stay at Mahe or like go to Pralin or Ladig. Of course, Pralin and Ladig has resorts which are more expensive to the
Mm.
ones at Mahe. And once you're in Mahe, there are different things that you can do. But we spent 8 nights in Seychelles. That's a lot. But we broke that down into 3 nights at this place called JA Enchanted Island Resort, which is
Mm.
this private island with just 12 villas, which is inside of a marine national park. So generally going from Mahe to this national park, you'll probably be doing a day excursion. The good thing about that was we could kayak through the waters of this
Wow.
marine park and just jump into the water at any time. We went to this island called the Moyan Island, which was like a tortoise island.
Mm.
And as we were walking through, one thing about Seychelles is Seychelles population is about 98,000 people.
Mm.
Now that's the population of just one locality in
In
Mumbai,
Mumbai.
and or even Europe, right? Like, Europe gets crowded if you compare it to something like the Seychelles. So one of the good things that Seychelles gives you that a Maldives does not is that in Maldives you're stuck to one hotel. You
Mm.
cannot go out because there's no sightseeing in the Maldives. But in Seychelles, you have your hotel and there is things that you can do. So what we did was we did scuba diving, we did kayaking, we did snorkeling. We even managed to just like or just take a few drinks and then put it in a kayak and just kayak around the
Wow.
place. We could cycle around Ladig. We went to, I
I
think
think you went
it's,
hiking
yeah,
as well, right?
yeah,
You you
we
trekked
went
up. Yeah.
hiking. We went on a small trail. It was called the Coppolia Trail.
Mm.
When you read about it, it was 1.8 kilometer, 1.6 kilometers, it said. But the
Mm.
1.6 kilometers are tiring. And Seychelles being close to the equator, it was hot and it was like super hot. Humidity was
Mm.
at like 70 or 80%. So you're just drenched by the end of it. But so we spent 3 days at this Enchanted Island Resort and 5 nights at this place called Mango House, which was an LXR property by Hilton. I'll come to that a little later on. But perspectives were different.
Mm.
It was quite interesting. And it just felt right. Now, like, okay, I think you have a question for me
No,
or
no, no.
something.
I was just going to say that it's funny that both of us, where you were in the sand and the beach, and I was up in snow, but both of us got tanned. It's amazing how you can, and even in the snow, the sun was amazing. Like, and we were like, okay, what's happening? We're actually working on the tan here in the snow. So that was really a great experience
Yeah, yeah,
out
yeah,
there.
definitely. So like coming back to Switzerland now, right? Like,
Mhm.
of course there are different people who like different times to visit Switzerland. This time you
Yes.
visited in April. What was the weather like?
So it was really unseasonal because where I reached there end of March and I was there end of March and April, Neil. And usually at this time, it's like a transition. So you're transitioning from winter into spring. So the weather can be unpredictable. But yes, I've been in summer and it's been colder than what it was now. So we had this one beautiful week of superb sunshine, and it was a very pleasant, like 15 degrees to 18 degrees. And even the locals couldn't believe what was happening. And they kept saying that, you got the sunshine from India and you got the warm weather from India with you. But I did see some snow towards the end. So by the time I reached Zurich, it went back to the winter weather. And but that was beautiful too, because I would look out and it was snowing, and rain turned to snow, and the next day everything was, the trees were covered in white. So I really got the whole range of weather, and it's absolutely beautiful. So one thing about the weather is, if you're really a little better prepared, then you're prepared for every weather. And this time I had decided I will not take a big bag, I will take a small bag, but just keep layers, and that really helps. So if it got hot, I would, just get rid of a layer, and if it got cold, it's easy to just carry a thermal and then add a layer on, and then you're comfortable again. So I had a great time with the changing weather as well. But yeah, it was just simply beautiful.
I think, you can misread the weather when you're in Europe, because you'll wake up outside the window, there'll be clear skies and everything, and it might seem that it's not going to be cold at all. And you just decide that, okay, I'm just going to walk out in a shirt and denims, and suddenly it gets cold, and it's always handy to keep that jacket. Speaking of the weather, Seychelles was hot, like I said, and
Mm.
I would always recommend someone to keep like another pair of shirts or t-shirts handy, because you just sweat a fair bit. Another thing, like, I don't know whether you've done a self-drive in Switzerland. Is that possible?
Neil, you can do a self drive in Switzerland, but I really never had the chance or even the reason to, because the Swiss trains are just amazing, and I love traveling by train in Switzerland. It's one of my favorite things to do. Like they say that more than the destination, the journey is really worth it. And you can say that about Switzerland again and again and again. And I've always enjoyed even talking to the ticket checkers who come in the trains, and they are like little guides about destinations. So I saw this one lady, she came in, she checked our tickets, she checked the and she was so sweet and warm and said, like, have a great time, enjoy Switzerland. And there was a person who wanted to reach Zurich in time for his flight, and she sat down with him and explained to him that, okay, if you take this route you reach 10 minutes faster, if you do this would be faster. And why not, if you don't want to go fast and you want to take a stop and look at our beautiful country, then stay back here. So she was like this little guide helping him work his itinerary around Switzerland. And I thought that was just fantastic and so welcoming. But I
So
love the trains there.
would you say that the train is the preferred mode of transport for tourists as compared to driving? I mean, I would say so, because, but like, I thought, like, you're a
In
specialist.
Switzerland, definitely need, because
Mhm.
first of all, the Swiss travel system, and you get a pass that is valid for the Swiss travel system. So if you are staying there longer, if you're doing just one journey, then yes, you will take a point to point ticket. But if you're going to be spending like 4 5 days, the easiest thing to do in Switzerland is take a pass. So the pass allows you to travel. The same ticket lets you travel on trains, on buses. If there are any ferries, you can use that as well. And most of the hotels will give you like a little card that lets you travel on the local buses as well. So you're sorted with that one ticket, and you can go anywhere and everywhere, and everything's signposted, everything's very clear. So it's really easy. And when you enter the train, you have the space, the luggage rack to keep your luggage. Then when you go a little bit inside, you realize that if that's not enough, in between, the way that seats are designed, you can actually push your luggage in between the seats. The seats have charging, they have lights. There is it has like a nice pantry that you could go to the restaurant. You can really work, and I've seen people work so peacefully. And even I had like a 3 hour train journey. I could work, I could do a lot of things, watch a movie if you want. You have a lot of things you can do on the train, so it's very convenient, very very
So,
convenient.
as compared to that, you need a self-drive car in Seychelles or Mahe.
Mhm.
So if you decide to stay on the main island, that is Mahe,
Hmm.
like, people confuse that. When I told someone that I landed in Mahe, they started laughing at me, because they were like, hey, Mahe is in Maldives. But I was like, no, Male is in Maldives, Mahe is in Seychelles. So if you're staying on the main island, my recommendation would be have a self-drive car. It comes to about 50 to 60 euros per day, but it is super convenient, because taxis can be expensive, and having a self-drive just enabled us to even go to the departmental store if you wanted something, go find out some takeaway joints. And like, it was just easier doing that when you're staying on the main island. If you're staying in Pralin or Ladig is basically an island, just have bicycles. You can just bike around and you can rent the bicycles for quite cheap, and you can bike around everywhere. Ladig has what is voted as one of the top 5 beaches in the world. It's called La Sol. Well, Anse is beach in French, I think. So Anse Source de Argent. I don't know how it's pronounced in French, but it's like this rocky beach. So that is what you can do in Ladig. So the moment ferrying between the islands, you can take a plane. Of course, there's domestic flights. Takes off, lands in 12 minutes. But instead of that, you can take an hour and a half ferry, which would cost you approximately 15,000 rupees for two. And you can go to Pralin. They have daily services, but it's always good to book in advance. So you can certainly do that. But I would recommend, if you're staying in Mahe, just have a car. We explored north of Mahe, south of Mahe, also the trail. When you're going on the Coppolia Trail or the other trails that Mahe might have, the car certainly helps.
And Neil,
But
when you mentioned the ferry, was it easy to transfer your luggage with the ferry? Like, did you take a ferry
we stayed on the main island, right? So we just had to walk into the ferry, but it's quite
and you
easy.
did like,
Yeah. So we were in Mahe, but we saw many tourists hopping onto the ferry with their luggage. The luggage is stored in the luggage compartment. The ferry leaves dot at 8. We were stuck in traffic. We reached at 7:59, ran into the ferry, and that was done. So you can, like, the ferry goes from Mahe to Pralin, which is the main thing. And if you're going to Ladig, then you can go from Mahe to Pralin, a 10-minute stop, and then it goes to Ladig. So generally, if you are doing an excursion from Mahe, we had booked a ferry from Mahe to Ladig. And see, after a point, it just becomes beaches, 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 right? So we decided to forego the reservation the next day that we had for Pralin and just do Ladig instead. So we did Mahe, we did Ladig. And then they have something, so you can go kayaking. Most resorts will offer that complimentary, but they also have crystal water kayaks, which is basically like a glass bottom boat that
kayak,
you could have done in
so
Switzerland.
it's like transparent and you can actually see when
Exactly.
you're kayaking,
Yeah.
right? That's amazing.
And like, the marine life is good. You can see some fish, but of course, the Andamans or the Maldives will offer way better marine life. And the beaches in Seychelles are not that big. So you'll often have, at high tide, the beaches just disappear. But you can stop anywhere when you have the car, and it just becomes quite easy. Another thing I actually wanted to ask you about Switzerland is that, how was the food?
The food was really good, and everywhere we had a variety of food that we tasted. So you can of course have Swiss food, you can have rosti, and you can have fondue, all of that, a raclette. So a lot of cheese, of course. The day started off with cheese, but I think anywhere that Indians go, we managed to get our spices in. So even at the hotel that we were staying, the Swiss lady by the third day could easily make a masala omelette for the entire crew really nicely. So that was really nice. We taught her because they sometimes they lack in spice, but the food was really nice everywhere. In fact, even on top of Europe, when we went into the local restaurant, and they had this very nice, amazing, like like mountain food, very good tomato soup with some cream and some cheese and main course and all of that. So that was great. One thing about Interlaken, and I spent a lot of time in Interlaken, Neil, and that is one of the favorite places for most Indians to spend time in. Really nice place. There are lots of different restaurants there. So we actually had dinner at a Lebanese place. And with Interlaken, what we can do, and even as Veena word, what we can do for people who want to go on their own, is kind of give you like a food voucher, which lets you eat at any of the restaurants. So it's a food voucher that you can pre-book, pre-pay, and then you have the freedom to go and have a meal at all the restaurants listed on that, from Thai food to Lebanese to Swiss food to Indian food if you want. So you're not stuck. So sometimes you don't want to be bothered about going and making payments there, and this is a great way to travel and even enjoy the food out there. So yeah, it was a good mix of different kinds of food. In fact, I like somehow eating on trains. Like some people like eating on planes, and I love it. I love the restaurant. I love to go. I love it when the train is moving a little. And amazing sandwiches that they have. So the like Emmental cheese and sun-dried tomato. So lots of different options, nice coffees. So it was a great trip. But I think in Seychelles, Neil, you must have tasted Creole food or some different, or lots of seafood probably.
So basically, it was a non-veg food lover's paradise. But for a vegetarian, that is my wife Heta, it was a struggle. Because Creole food is basically you're having Creole curry, Creole rice, Creole fish, Creole fish barbecue with vegetables on the side and all of that. But for vegetarians, unless you're staying at one of the top-notch properties, like there was the Four Seasons and the Anantara Maya Resort, and along with North Island, and are the top places. So of course they might get you vegetarian food because you're of course paying for the stay. But most other places, if you go to like takeaway joints or something like that, it's very difficult for vegetarians. Like we were at this rock cafeteria where I had like this proper stone grill where I had tuna, I had prawns, I had a lot of these things. And like Heta just had veg fried rice. And that veg fried rice also seemed like veg pulao. So what I did for her was that I told her that, you know what, there's this stone grill. I'll have my non-vegetarian thing on one side. And for Heta, I'll just like grill the rice in like a fried rice. So at least it has
some taste, like
some
there's a
taste and all of
flavor.
that. Yeah, exactly. But then at Mango House, which was south of the island, again, a very boutique property, and one of the chefs there told me that that plot is owned by the royal family of the UAE. We found out that the pizza there was incredible. Like think about it, pumpkin puree pizza. It seems very different, but it was so good. There was this one day we had 3 pizzas, and that was that was interesting. But overall, I would say the food wasn't mind blowing, even for a non-vegetarian like me. I tried a number of things, but the food was all right. Like it wasn't something where I'll write about the food when I was in the Seychelles. I'll write about the beaches. I'll write about all of the activities that we did, the pretty drives that we took. But the food was all right. Like, I would say I've had better. And that's probably because there's not much on the island, right? So, and it's the local seafood that you can generally have. So the food was quite all right. What else do you have about Switzerland?
So, like you mentioned, kayaking, I think Interlaken really is the home of adventure travel. And I was really lucky to have many different experiences on this tour. And of course, we did Jungfrau, we went up there in the cable car. And talking of the cable car, they also have a VIP gondola. So, in the VIP cable car, it's like plush red leather seats, 8 seats only, and the seats themselves also rotate, so you can actually sit and take a complete 360-degree view. And then if you book that, you have Moe and Chandon, like a nice drink with you as you're going up, like champagne and stuff. So that's really interesting. But along with that, Interlaken itself offers so much. Like we went paragliding, so it was a nice drive up the mountain, and the very luxurious Victoria Jungfrau, which is the hotel right on the street, in Main Street in Interlaken. And they have this big ground in front of it, and everybody lands there. So you can actually just sit there and watch people gently come down and paraglide. Or like we did, we took up paragliding. So we went up the mountain, they briefed us, and it was incredible to fly over, because when you're flying over, you realize why Interlaken is called Interlaken. Like it means between two lakes, like Interlaken. So you have, Brienz on one side and you have Lake Thun on the other side. And you can actually see both those lakes and Interlaken sitting right in the center. And you're nicely floating over it. Thankfully, we had great weather. So that was something amazing. And then after that, I had this very gentle and nice, sweet, romantic horse carriage ride across Interlaken. So that takes you on the smaller streets that maybe you'll often miss because you're going off on different excursions. So that was a nice way to spend time going into smaller streets, doing all of that. And then, of course, the best part was not just having chocolate, because Switzerland is famous for chocolate, but I had a chance to actually make chocolate. So I had a chocolate making class at the Funky Chocolate Club, and she was really entertaining. But we got to learn about what is white chocolate, what is dark chocolate, and what is milk chocolate. And we learned like white chocolate actually is not chocolate because there's no cocoa in it. So it's just milk and sugar. But yes, if you like it, so you can do different things, you can add, and you can make 3 different varieties of chocolate. So this time I brought back chocolate that I made. So yeah, it was just amazing to do that in Interlaken.
So, speaking of famous things, right? Of course, chocolate and Switzerland just go together. There is the Takamaka rum of Seychelles that you
Yes.
should definitely try. And you get the dark spiced rum and the regular rum that is super famous. Like, I think Takamaka rum just runs Seychelles because you see ads everywhere, and they have like a beer called the Sabrew beer. So both of them
Mhm.
are super famous, and which is similar to like mulled wine in Switzerland, right? Like during the
Yes.
winters, you would have that. But Sunila, quickly, as we are reaching the end of the episode, the mountains in Switzerland, the famous ones that you can go to, of course, there's Titlis, there's Jungfraujoch, there's
Glacier 3000,
Glacier
there's
3000.
Zermatt,
Yes.
and you can spend lots of days around it out there. If you're talking of mountain excursions, you can go up to Shilthorn as well,
Hmm.
which is called the James Bond Mountain, and
Yeah.
they have the rotating restaurant, so you can actually sit in the restaurant and go through. There is a open air cable car that takes you up Stanzerhorn,
Hmm.
so that's another place that you could go to. And yes, more towards Lugano and Ticino,
Hmm.
you can take up a cable car and go up Mount Brie there as well. So every corner of Switzerland will have a mountain and a funicular and a cable car or some way of getting up there. And in Interlaken itself, and you can keep seeing it as you're walking in Interlaken, there's another nice mountain called the Hadekum. Not that high, but a funicular does take you up there. And it's really getting popular for the evening, like sunsets and dinner. So that's again something that you can do. You can spend your days on mountains every day or by the side of a lake every day if you want to.
Nice. So, like speaking of the mountains, which are like the beaches of Seychelles, right? So in
Mhm.
Seychelles, there's the Beauvalor beach, which is in Mahé, the Anse Sauce de Argent beach in La Digue. There's also something called Police Bay south of Mahé that you can certainly visit.
Mhm.
If you want to do water sports, Beauvalor beach is like where you will get most of the water sports. There are not many beaches where you'll find shacks and you can just sit there having like French fries and a drink and then like what you do in Goa, but Beauvalon is one of the famous beaches out there. There are many trails that take you to viewing points that give you a nice view of the islands. And like finally coming to the stay, I think it would be good to end the episode on the stay. Where did you stay, and which were the cities that you managed to?
So I actually did three cities this time. In Interlaken, I was the Lindner Bureauage, which is also like a grand palace hotel, quite historic, and right on the street, main street itself. But Interlaken does offer you a range of accommodation. So you have Victoria Jungfrau, you have Lindner Bureauage, and this really beautiful hotel called the Metropole, which is now getting renovated. I call it beautiful because it has the most incredible views of Interlaken and one of the taller hotels, because usually in Interlaken they have like a height restriction, so there were not too many tall hotels, but from this hotel you can get views everywhere. And then I was in Bern, and in Bern I was at this beautiful hotel called the Schweizerhof. And the best part was that the minute I got out of the train station, the hotel was to my left. So I just had to cross the road and get into the hotel. So I think excellent location. And that is one very important thing that you should remember when you're planning a holiday, not just to Switzerland, but anywhere in Europe, especially if you're traveling by trains, because location becomes very important. And if you can stay near the train station, and usually the train stations in Europe are all centrally located. So if you are anywhere around it, you can go to the old city, the old town, the newer areas very easily. Most of Europe still has trams running, so Bern also had trams actually running everywhere. Or you can walk. Like I think I was doing more than 15,000, 17,000 steps every day because I was enjoying the walk all through the old towns in every city that I went. So yeah, try and stay in the city center, and it's worth paying that little extra rather than being out if you're going to be on your own and if you're traveling by trains.
And I'll say the opposite. If you go to Seychelles, don't stay near the airport because that's the busy part of town. So try to go as outward as possible. But going as outward from the airport is also like a maximum of 50 minutes if you're going by car. Or if you fly into Mahé, just go to Pralin and you can just stay by yourself. And yeah, I think that's it. What else have we left to cover, Sunila? Like anything in particular that you wanted to mention?
Neil, I think there is just so much to offer that both these countries, right, so different. Probably, like you said, Seychelles, you planned it because you thought that this is going to be your only trip to the island, and that takes a different kind of planning. So you want to tick off all the major spots that are there. So if you are ever planning to go to a destination just once or maybe twice, then try and do as much as you can and spend a longer duration of time in that country so you get to see everything. With Switzerland, probably I think it's going to be, when is my first trip, second trip, third trip. So do your plans accordingly because there is just so many experiences and so many cities that you may not be able to do everything. Like a grand tour of Switzerland itself would take 15 days. So unless you have that kind of time, and it's great to combine Switzerland with Italy, combine Switzerland with France, combine Switzerland with Germany, because you can take a train and get into the other countries. You don't even have to depend on anything else. So you can do multiple trips to that destination and plan your trips accordingly. So I think that's just something to keep in mind.
Yes, that's awesome, guys. That's the tip from our travel encyclopedia, that is Sunila. But I guess, thank you, Sunila. I think that was Switzerland and the Seychelles, the snow and the sand, or the snow and the beaches. We'll see everyone next week on Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life. We are back now. Our travels are done for a while before we take another trip again. But take care, everyone. It's the summer holidays, and start booking your holidays because everything is getting sold out, whether it's within Incredible India or outside. And also remember to get your booster, because without the booster, you may not be able to enter many countries in the world. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life. Bye.